So, hi, Brian. How are you this afternoon?
I'm good, Igor. Coming to you on a rainy fall day.
Embracing thirst and hunger. How did the idea of this article come
Yeah.
about?
So, in general, I put it in an organization context and looked at it through the lens of let's look at hunger through a positive light and hunger as a motivation. And so, when I think about the leaders that I work with that have had the most success or the companies that have grown the fastest, it's not just about product market fit, but it's about this competitive spirit, which I would define as a hunger or a thirst. And so, you need both food and liquid or water to survive. You can survive longer on just liquid than food. So there's something to be said there. But yeah, so it got me thinking about how would you frame both of these concepts in terms of, it was one around the quenching the vision, around, the thirst, and then the hunger being around kind of the achievement of the goals.
So, what's the main takeaway from the article that you want the readers to get?
That hunger, thirst are forms of desire, and they're a desire for achievement, and that it's not about a destination. It's about maintaining that, and it's about the journey. And so when I think about that in the context of the opposite is fat and happy, which to me is the couch potato. It's lazy, right? And so if you are able to keep your employees and keep yourself hungry, then you're going to continuously learn and continue to strive to do better.
So in terms of dieting, the recipe is simple or relatively known. In terms of building a company, what's the recipe? How do you keep your fat and happy self and team on the diet?
I think it's a matter of, for one thing, never stop moving, complacency, right? So when you have success and you rest on your laurels, that's a recipe for disaster. Concept that I always kind of thought of and have shared is the idea of how do you operate from a number one position with a number two mindset? And the thought there is, if you think about a runner in a race, if you're running around a track and there's a finish line, would you rather be running from first place looking over your shoulder the entire time? Or would you rather be running from second place with your eyes on the target of who you have to pass before you get to the finish line? And me personally, I always say I'd rather run from the second position with my eyes looking ahead at where I'm trying to go and who I'm trying to beat than looking back paranoid about who's going to catch me.
That makes sense as a mental model. But I'm thinking in terms of like practice or discipline.
Yeah.
Where do I start?
Yeah. So I think you start with the goal. Like, I always like the idea of work backwards. So if we fast forward to the end of the next year, and we're popping champagne to celebrate a great year, what will we have accomplished? And with that framing, you then can back into, okay, what are the milestones along the way that we have to hit in order to achieve that milestone? And knowing that whatever that goal is at the end of the year, that's not the end of the race. That's just the end of that leg. And so the idea is you want to build a company that's enduring and that actually stands the test of time and that can outlast and outlive the people that are running it today, which then requires evolution, reinvention of the company over time, and the upskilling of people, because the people that are running it today eventually are going to retire or leave, and you have to have a next generation ready to then take over.
I guess I'm struggling to understand in practical terms, because even fat and happy companies and employees, they go through the motions. They do the planning, they do the goal setting. What's the difference between this company not having this mindset and this company deciding, okay, we want to change business as usual? Like, what are the things that specifically need to change?
So I think there's got to be things that excite people within the organization. If it's a technology company, for instance, technology is rapidly evolving. 5 years ago, nobody was talking about AI, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about AI and how it's changing the landscape and the way business is done. So there's new challenges and new opportunities all the time in a technology company. If you're in a legacy business making things that, have become commoditized, it's hard to have that same excitement. And so you have to find alternative markets, alternative uses for your products, things that can get people excited about another path forward. One of the best examples to me is, Microsoft as an organization that, kind of plateaued, hit a peak, was kind of losing market share and was kind of bumping along. And, they bring Satya Nadella, who was an insider, grew up in the company, and put him in the CEO role. Great book called Hit Refresh, which is, kind of his story of the turnaround at Microsoft and how they reinvented the company and were able to put it back onto a growth trajectory. So the idea of a company being built to last is that there has to be some form of renewal and reinvention.
I was thinking back if there is a connection between what happens when we kind of want to change ourselves and when a company wants to change ourselves. And for personal transformation, typically thinking and being excited is part of the puzzle. But today I'm excited, tomorrow I'm tired, or I lost it and I'm no longer excited. So it doesn't kind of take me far. But for me to get going, I adopt a habit.
Yep.
I adopt a routine. I make my bed. I do something that is foundational from a company perspective.
Yeah.
What have you seen like other similar?
Yes, there are. I mean, we were in a workshop earlier this year with a client, and I asked the question, are you guys more productive during the school year than you are during the summer?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the answer was absolutely. And so just another model to think about. During the summer, people take vacation, kids are out of school, every day's kind of different and kind of chaotic in terms of, there aren't as many routines. And then you go back to the school year and it's like the alarm has to go off at a certain point. You've got to get the kids dressed and fed and off to the school or to the school bus. And so you have to be much more regimented in the way that you structure your time. And as a result of that, there's efficiencies that are created. And so in your personal life, which then bleeds into your work life. So I think people in businesses are more efficient during the school year than they are during the summer. And it's just kind of this other way of thinking around having that. To your other point, though, I also liken it to exercise, right? And exercise, when you make it into a habit, it becomes easier. Arnold Schwarzenegger once kind of had this great quote, and he said that, you only have one body, and if you don't take care of it, it's going to let you down. And one of the things that we are conditioned to do every day is brush our teeth at least twice a day. He said, so exercise should be no different than brushing your teeth. It should be something that you just build into your routine and do every day.
So what have you seen or kind of we worked with on companies adopting as this kind of a routine to embrace thirst and hunger?
So cadence. So having a cadence for the business where there's a rhythm and there's like, standing Monday morning meeting, there's a Friday, wrap up, there's a calendar that you can look at and consistently know when things are going to happen. I think that can be really helpful to set standards and get everybody in the same kind of marching to the same beat. And literally there is a rhythm or a beat to a well-run business.
That makes total sense. In terms of like balance, how hungry is too much hungry? Like what's the right balance?
So this can be a challenge because some people are workaholics. And the challenge with that is that if they set that expectation then for the rest of the organization, they burn people out. And not everybody is at the same life stage where they have the same ability to commit to the job, right? And so if you have a CEO and you get to work in the morning and their car's already in the parking lot and you leave in the evening, the car's still in the parking lot, it's like, no matter what I do, I can't keep up with this person. It can be somewhat demoralizing. And so if you're the leader, you have to recognize that you set the tone for the organization. If you set this unrealistic expectation, you may burn people out. And the other piece of that is that if you're married to your job, then you're probably letting down your family and others. And so you have to have, in the words of Claude Silver, life-work balance versus work-life balance. So you have to prioritize life over work. And when you do that, it makes you more effective during the times that you are at work.
And just a sneak peek or preview, if you're working with this CEO as a coach, as an executive coach, what advice do you give them to get started this change?
One of the things that I found most effective for those people is to make certain that the coaching takes them out of their traditional environment. Best thing for the kind of workaholic, CEO that I'm coaching is, let's meet outside and go for a walk in a park. Let's go do something that disconnects you from your routine and puts you in an environment that is foreign to you and lets you see that there's life outside of work and that there's other ways to be productive. I often ask people about doing this time pie when I start a coaching engagement with them. How many hours do you sleep? How much time do you spend exercising? Do you spend with your family, eating meals and so forth? And then your work time, how are you spending it? And do you have a commute? And what do you do during your commute? Do you use your commute to decompress? Do you use your commute to work in the morning to set up your day? Do you have somebody that is in an overseas office? And if so, can you use your commute time to actually, if it's your morning and it's their evening, can you use it to connect with them and more efficiently make time for them? Now, the downside to that is, I've had people say, well, the thing is, the only time I get the CEO is when he's in the car or she's in the car. And that's not a good thing. So you've got to create balance, but you can get smarter about how you're using your time. And so I try to, influence that with the people that I'm working.
And how quickly do you usually see change?
That's not up to me. That's how committed are they to seeing the change as something that they want and that they see positive feedback. I think the first piece is that they need to have reinforcement that, hey, we see a difference in your behavior, or this is working, or you're showing up differently.
This makes sense. Anything else I haven't asked you about embracing thirst and hunger that you'd like to kind of highlight to mention, or something that you've learned that you didn't know before starting kind of to put your thoughts on paper about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a breakfast and a dinner person. I could skip lunch every day. So I do think that you have to, quench that thirst, have that, something that fuels you up at the beginning of the day. And I think that the same thing in terms of, what is it that pacifies that appetite outside of work? So, if you take meals as a physical need, is there another need that you have in terms of whether it's getting out in nature or doing something outside of work that you need to quench that thirst or fill that hunger with some regularity? For me, it's getting out on the water. And the water, frees my mind. I had a conversation the other day with somebody that the two places that I do my best thinking are in the shower and when I go for a run. And the commonality about those two things is it's the only two places that I'm completely disconnected from technology.
So you don't take your smartwatch with you?
I do take my smartwatch, but it's not sending me messages. I don't have a signal to it. So it may be tracking my run, but I'm not interrupted. And so it allows my mind to free itself to think without the distraction of getting pinged or, getting a text or whatever.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.